So just so everyone's aware, I will be recording. Lovely. So welcome to the Key Stage 1 meeting about the national curriculum tests and what assessments look like for children in Year 2. So Mrs. Hunt's here over one shoulder and Miss Smart's hiding over here. Miss Smart is keeping an eye on the chat. So if you have any questions, please do pop it in there and we'll do our very best to answer them as we go through. Okay. Here we go. So in May, children in Year 2 across this country are assessed, and they are assessed using statutory papers that are sent to school. These are the Key Stage 1 assessment tests. They are in reading, in maths and in SPAG, and I'll go into more detail about what they look like as we look at each of the papers. Now, fortunately for us, in Year 2, it's a little bit more flexible than some of the other assessments. So in Year 6, children are given a set day, set time, and they take that test. In Year 2, it's a lot more flexible. We can stop, we can look back at the papers, we can take the whole of the month to complete them. We're not set to a particular rigid timetable. So it's very, very flexible and fluid, and it means we can respond to the needs of the children. They're not administered according to a nationally set timetable in a specific week. It means that we are free to manage the timetable and we can administer the tests in the classroom in a low stress, low key way. I mean, we do assessments week in, week out anyway, so this shouldn't be any different to what we would normally have in the classroom. Some children may not even be aware that they've taken their tests because that's how sort of low key and casual we do try and keep it. So we're going to start off looking at the reading papers. And I think it was just before Christmas time, maybe last term, we sent home a set of papers that we had done with the children because we do practice a couple of times throughout the year. So you have been given some papers that your children have already completed. It's always a really good idea to have a look at those, just to sort of see what kind of questions come up and to see the expectations and how the tests look. So the reading test for Year 2 is 2 separate papers. Paper 1, which has around 400 to 700 words, and it will have a piece of text and then a couple of questions after it, all the way through the paper interspersed. Paper 2 is slightly different. There's a booklet for the children to read, and then there's a separate booklet where the children put their answers. That feels a little bit more like an AR quiz because they've got something that they've read and looked at, and then they can answer some questions about it. Those papers take about 30 minutes each, but it is flexible. We can stop, we can do one part of the paper, have a break, come back to it. We will respond to how the children get on in the classroom and the needs that they have. On to the math papers. So the Year 2 tests are made up of 2 maths papers. Paper 1 is arithmetic, so lots of numerical questions, 5 times 2, there'll be some fractions in there, be some multiplication and division. Paper 2 is more of the reasoning and problem solving, so that might include shape, measurement, might be some questions about temperature, angles, those kind of things that will come up in that paper. And again, we are allowed to give that time, about 35 minutes, but we can break if we need to. We can stop, we can have a break, we can come back to it and then carry on. Like the SPAG papers. So again, like the other 2, there are 2 papers for this. The first paper is a spelling test. That is normally quite quick, about 15 minutes, and there's 20 words. We give the children a sentence, and the sentence is on their sheet. They have a word missing. Once they know what the word is, they then attempt to spell it. And it's lots of the words that are given practice in class, lots of the common rules, plurals, suffixes, those kind of things that come up. Paper 2 is around grammar and punctuation and vocabulary. So there might be a sentence that doesn't have any punctuation. The children have to demarcate that and put that in correctly. They might be asked to write a simple sentence, might be asked to use a question mark or capital letter, those kind of things. So if we move on to how those tests mark, marked and what do those scores actually mean. So even though the papers are sent in to us as a school, unlike the Year 6 tests, we will mark them. So teachers are allowed to mark the Year 2 SAT tests. And the raw score, so if they got 5 out of 10 or whatever the particular test might be, that is added together and it's converted into a scaled score. Now, a scaled score of 100 is a child working at age-related expectation. So you would have had a couple of sets of data already, and it will have a number on there, sort of 98, 100, maybe 115, something like that. That will give you an idea of where your child is sitting in that particular subject area. A score below 100 indicates that a child needs more support and there might be a particular area that needs help on with their learning. The maximum score is 115. So that would be indicating to us that we've got a child working at what we call greater depth. And the minimum is 85. Now, the nice thing for us is the tests help to build up a very small part of a bigger jigsaw piece. So we use those tests to help us to make sure that our judgments for your children's learning are accurate. So we've been in Year 2 long enough to know what a child needs to work on, how they need to improve, how to get age-related. We will use how they perform in these tests to give us an indication of how they are sitting in terms of their academic ability at the end of Key Stage 1. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to show you a short video from the Department of Education that will reiterate lots of the messages that I've said, and it will put a little bit more meat to the bones. Now, the noise in the background is, I believe, Mr. Cooper with the Hoover, so I do apologise. So, how do I stop sharing? I will need to share the video once I. Here we go. Did that come up on your screen now? Yeah, lovely. Here we go. There, home audio. Right, I believe the video can't have any sound. So what I'll do is I'll post this video onto our Year 2 Twitter page anyway. And if I play it through, there are subtitles, so you will be able to follow on what is being said. Okay, so yeah, there were subtitles on the bottom, and what I will do is I will tweet that from the Year 2 account, so you can watch that again. But that's quite a useful video, just sort of reiterating the messages about how the tests work. And then finally, the last thing is, what can you do to support your child? Now, testing is a regular part of how we operate in school. It's really important to help us to get an idea of how children are learning and to make solid assessments so that we know where they need support next. So try not to worry them. It's really, really standard procedure that we would test, check, assess, quiz, those kind of things. So making it normal, making it part of our routine is really important. And as it said in the video, linking with the home learning. So regular reading with your child, completing their learning log, that kind of routine is really going to help. And it's helping them also to respond to a text, which is a big part of the reading paper. And then to support the maths, regular times tables, rock stars, those children that do really well at keep up that fluency and that practice, it does make a big difference for them when it comes to the test time. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And then what we will do is the school staff will be on here for the next 10 minutes or so. If you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat, or if you know how to do the reactions and raise a hand, you can do that. And we're here to answer any of your concerns that you might have about the testing process and about what it might look like in May. So in terms of times tables, in Year 2, we discretely teach them the 2s, the 5s and the 10s. And it's about knowing those multiplications as times, but also the division facts that go with it as well. So we set the times table rock stars to practice those 3 particular times tables. And if you have some questions that you'd like to go directly to us rather than this forum, then both of all of our email addresses. So please do get in touch. We'll do our best to help. But unless you have any other questions, then thank you for joining us. I wish you all a nice evening.